Ah, Smart Water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart Water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original. Which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. This is the More Money Show. We talk about economics. We talk about politics. We talk about how you can make more money on the show. Thank you so much to my loyal audience. And if you're a newcomer, I hope you enjoy the show. We are on live 1 to 3 Eastern time every Saturday afternoon on affiliates throughout the country. Many of them pick up the show at different hours. Thank you so much for joining. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be in front of this microphone. So much to talk about this week. And incidentally, are you getting the Unleash Prosperity hotline? If you're not getting the Unleash Prosperity hotline, why not? It is absolutely free. It costs you nothing. And I want you, my loyal listeners, to be the smartest person in the room when you're talking about economics and policy, public policy, what's going on in Washington, what's going on in your state, what's going on in your schools. And the way to do that is get the Unleash Prosperity hotline. It is free. It costs nothing. It is absolutely free. So just go to unleashprosperity.com, sign up, just click the button for the hotline. We'll send it to you 5 mornings a week. And I think you'll enjoy it. We like to add a little humor. We like to kind of make fun of some of our liberal friends. And we like to provide you with very important information about how you can make more money with the money that you have. That's the whole purpose of this show. So unleashprosperity.com, hotline, get it, and get your friends to get it. By the way, if your friends are not getting Unleash Prosperity hotline, are they really your friends? Okay, so let us get down to the news of the week as we always start this show. I want to start with something that Trump did that made me very proud this week. And Trump has a tendency of making me proud. I really admire as week after week goes by. And by the way, if you're a new or regular listener to the show, I want you to know that when I disagree with Donald Trump, I will say it. And I agree with him about 80% of the time. 20% of the time, I don't agree with him. I'm not happy about these new tariffs on prescription drugs. I think that could make our prescription drugs more expensive. I don't understand the logic of that. But one of the things I thought was absolutely wonderful this week was when he went to the United Nations Council and he gave a speech that I've been waiting 30 years for a president to give, an American president to say this to all these Euro bureaucrats and these dignitaries from around the world who are so arrogant and full of themselves, and they don't give a whit about America. They just want more money from American taxpayers, and they are so out of touch with reality. And so here is what Trump said. He said this, and it is so correct. He said, quote, "This climate change is the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail." Well, folks, amen to that. He said it exactly right. What was very funny about that speech, and I was watching TV when he was giving the speech, they did a panorama of the people in the audience, and they just hated it. I mean, you could see they were grimacing and scowling because they don't like to be told by the American president they're wrong, but they are wrong about this. And it is true that this is a hoax. It is true that we need our fossil fuels. We need our oil, our gas, our coal, our nuclear power. We need all of that. And thank God for Trump for basically telling the American people that the emperor wears no clothes. And not just the American people. He was telling people around the world that. And I bet 80% of people around the world were nodding their head. Because when you take away people's energy, which is what this is all about, it's the green movement is about taking away people's energy. You take away their prosperity. You take away their opportunity to advance in the world. By the way, there's 1 billion people, 1 billion people who do not have access to reliable electricity. Why don't we do something about that? You could probably solve that problem with a couple $1 billion. They want to spend $200 billion on climate change, something that they can, look, bureaucrats are not going to change the global temperature of the world. It's that simple. Second, issue number 2, very quickly, shutdown. Shutdown may be coming. It may be coming this week. If it is coming, I want you all to know this very clearly, and I'm going to speak very plainly here, folks. If we get a lockdown, it is because of one person, and that well, not just one person. The leader of the movement to shut down the economy and shut down the government is Chucky Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate. The minority leader of the Senate. Thank God he's the minority leader of the Senate. And he is from New York. And he cannot get to yes. And he's telling Democrats, I'll vote against the budget so we can shut down the government. And here's the thing that's so ironic about this. I guarantee you, folks, you heard it first, More Money Show. If we have a lockdown, and I hope we don't have a lockdown or shutdown, but if we do have a shutdown of the economy, and by the way, this will affect non-essential government activities, so it's not going to affect your life in one way or another. But if that happens, I guarantee you, the media will blame the Republicans. They'll blame Trump and the Republicans. How do I know this? Because I've been in this business for 40 years. I arrived in Washington in 1984. I've seen lockdowns and shutdowns back from the Reagan era, back to the when Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House, during President Bush, during President Obama, during President Trump, during President Biden. Every time there's a shutdown, whether it's the Republican Congress or Democratic Congress, or Republican president, Democratic president, it's always the Republicans' fault. It's just always is. It's as clear as the clock striking midnight and the clock clocking when that happens. So my point is, they see this as a political advantage to shut down the government. And all they care about is politics and getting elected. So even though it's going to be bad for America, they will shut down the government and they will blame the Republicans. Now, they're saying that the Trump's budget does not spend enough money. Folks, this year's budget already is up 7%. 7%. Most of that is in welfare and Medicare and Medicaid. By the way, they're saying Trump's cutting these programs. Wait a minute, he's not cutting them. We're spending more money than ever before in the history of the country on these programs. And he's saying you're cutting them, Donald Trump, and you're hurting poor people. No, we're not cutting off people who deserve the programs or are eligible for the programs. We're cutting out illegal immigrants. We're cutting out people who are able-bodied who should be working but won't go to work. We're shutting out fraudsters, many of whom who don't even live in the United States who are taking advantage of these programs. Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. Democrats want to do nothing about that. Trump is saying we're going to cease and desist. We're going to go after the people who cheat these programs. I'm with Trump on this one. I hope that he does not blink first. If that means we have to have a temporary shutdown because of Chucky Schumer, then I say go for it. I say go for it. I know a lot of you may have different opinions on that, but my opinion is we cannot stay on the course we're on or we're going over a cliff, folks. This is Steve Moore. It's the Money Show. We'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for tuning in this weekend. My next guest is John Fund. You all know John Fund from his years of being one of the top political writers at the Wall Street Journal. He's also written for National Review. He's written several books on elections and is one of the smartest political commentators I know. So, John, thanks so much for joining.
Pleasure. Thanks, Steve.
So let's start with the issue of the day, which is what is going to happen to our government in Washington. It looks like at this moment we're headed towards a potential shutdown. Now, you and I have been in and around Washington for 40 years, so we've been to this movie before. One of the things that worries me about this is that every time there's a shutdown, whether it's a Republican president or a Democratic president or a Republican House and Senate or a Democratic House and Senate, it's always the Republicans' fault, John. So the question is, tell us what this is about. What are the stakes and what are they arguing about?
Well, it's no surprise the media will blame the Republicans for any government shutdown. But, not all shutdowns are the same. There have been shutdowns where the Republicans were finally making some progress in messaging their needs to the American voters. And then the Republicans would withdraw. For example, Bob Dole gave in on a famous shutdown during Newt Gingrich's reign in the 1990s. And they were just on the verge of victory. I believe that the Democrats are doing this for a variety of reasons. One, their left will not let them do the same thing they did in March, which is just allow a continuing resolution that funds the government programs at existing levels. They hate Trump so much, they're going to demand complete resistance. And Chuck Schumer is very worried about a primary from AOC in New York, and he's going to fight. The second reason is that they have the elections for Virginia governor and New Jersey governor. There are a lot of federal employees in New Jersey. There are a lot of federal employees, the most in the country per capita in Virginia. The Democrats believe that if there's a government shutdown that lasts through October, and remember, the one in 2013 lasted 35 days, federal workers will be motivated to turn out and vote. So I think it's cynical, but I think that's one of the reasons why the Democrats are doing something which some of their people in their own party say is a mistake, like Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania.
So I agree with you, John. I think this is all about politics, and it's all about who can win the upper hand. Now, Republicans are saying that they want to control government spending. By the way, even before this lockdown, federal spending is already up 7% this year. So it's not as if we're starving government here by any means.
It's baked in the cake.
Yeah, it's baked in the cake. So, by the way, the programs that are growing most rapidly and are out of control are Medicare, Medicaid, and the welfare programs. And those are exactly the programs, John, fund that the Democrats want more money for.
Well, Medicaid is a failed program. And as you know, the reforms that have been passed for it just deal with it around the edges. But even that saves a lot of money. The Democrats, though, it's not about helping people. It's about helping a constituency that is supposedly helping people, the welfare bureaucracy.
That's right.
And I believe that this is a battle for the heart and soul of the Washington, which is, does Washington ever care? Will it ever be possible to cut any spending anytime, anywhere? Right. And look, the Republicans have had a horrible spending record, but at least they wanted to cut something. Right. So I believe this has symbolic importance, and the Republicans cannot afford to retreat. Now, to his credit, the head of the Trump Budget Office, Russell Vought, says we're not only going to prioritize the programs that are essential, so we'll know which government programs are not viewed as essential. If we have a shutdown and then we take the shutdown away, we're going to fire a bunch of workers, and we're not necessarily going to bring them back if we don't think they're essential to the mission of the agency. So that would be real savings in federal employees.
So you and I are old enough to remember, and I think a lot of our audience is on this network and others around the country, that, do you remember when Bill Clinton was president? And he very famously, in I believe it was his 1996 or I think it was 95 or 96 State of the Union address, he very famously said, "The era of big government is over." And by the way, the applause line from that all over the Congress was amazing. And the American people applauded that line too. The era of big government is over. The other thing that Donald Trump talked about in that State of the Union, just to give you a sense of how much the Democratic Party has changed.
Bill Clinton talked about it.
Yes. Bill Clinton said that if you're on welfare, you need to be working. We need work requirements, which was very, very popular and remains very popular today. Well, those are the very issues and principles that Democrats are against today. In other words, they want to close down the government because Republicans want work requirements, and they want to shut down the government because they want the return and the continuation of the era of big government.
Well, and just remember, the work requirements of today are not nearly as onerous as they were in the 1990s. If you can keep your Medicaid program, if you're an able-bodied adult under the age of 60, you can keep it if you just do one of three things. You work 20 hours a week, you're in training 20 hours a week, for job training, for example, or you're volunteering.
Right.
Now, that, if you're able-bodied, is not a major burden on your life.
No, it isn't. And I think the polls are showing, 70% of Americans are for, able-bodied people. If you're going to get a government check or you're going to get food stamps or you're going to get free health care, that you should be working for it. If you look at what's happened to Medicaid and Medicare, the numbers show that in Medicaid, according to the government's own auditors, John Fund, $150 billion of fraud, $150 billion of fraud. Medicare has roughly the same amount of fraud. And here's a point I'd like your response to. One of the things that we've been finding at Unleash Prosperity, because we're fighting for limited government and balanced budgets and judicious levels of spending, is that the health insurance companies are in bed with the left to expand these programs because they're making huge amounts of money off of these government subsidized health insurance. Essentially what's happening, I want to make sure our listeners understand, the government is basically paying the premiums for people, and that premium money goes right into the hands of the health insurance companies. And I find that to be very problematic.
Well, let's take a look at United Healthcare, which is basically run and controlled by AARP,
yes,
which is a big government lobby. Right. Steve, I just signed up for Medicare a year or so ago, and I got a physical. It's great. I was happy with it, but I'm in an insurance program managed by United Healthcare. So I start getting these phone calls and texts from United Healthcare. We want to visit you in your home, and we want to give you special, nutrition. Well, no, nothing.
You're right, not you.
Nothing.
But the taxpayer.
Oh, listen, I never could get a straight answer, but I believe that they're chasing a $250 reimbursement. I already had a physical. I don't need them to visit me in my home.
But John, look.
But that's so. It's the conspiracy between big government and big business.
Yeah, it really is. And we just have 1 minute left in this segment, John. And I just was noticing this morning this news break that Sinclair will put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air. I wonder what do you think of this whole melodrama?
Well, the alternative was to put local news programming on. That costs money to put on. I think that over time, it was probably a little weird that 25%.
His ratings are not very good, are they?
Well, no one's ratings on television are good anymore. Do you know anyone under 40 who watches television now? No, it doesn't happen.
Our kids don't even have TVs.
What's a TV? I think the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing was frankly.
I don't think that Trump should have kind of.
No. The real villain.
Yeah.
Was Brendan Carr, the head of the Federal Communications Commission, because he made Jimmy Kimmel a hero, which was something that Jimmy Kimmel could never have done on his own. Now Jimmy Kimmel can never be fired. Yeah. So ABC is stuck with him and his $100 million.
Okay, folks, I hope none of you watch Jimmy Kimmel. I think I've probably watched that show about twice in my whole life. We've come a long way from Johnny Carson and David Letterman and people like that. Folks, we will be right back. When we come back, we will continue our conversation with one of the smartest political minds in America, and that is John Fund.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC and stations throughout the country. Thanks so much for joining. I'm having a fascinating conversation with my friend and colleague, John Fund. You all know John Fund from the Wall Street Journal, from National Review, from his many books on politics, from his many appearances on Fox News. He is one of the brightest minds on what's happening in politics, so we're having a good discussion about what is going on in Washington, D.C. But I want to take it out of Washington, D.C. right now, John, and talk about two states and two areas of the country that are having interesting developments. One of them, because we cover the Northeast with this radio station, there's a lot of interest in what's going to happen in that governor's race in New Jersey. So tell us, New Jersey is a pretty blue state, but they have elected some Republican governors in the past when things get really bad. And John, to me, it looks like things have gotten pretty bad in New Jersey.
Well, it may be a blue state, but
now, who's the Republican? Who's the Democrat?
It may be a blue state, but they're feeling blue because of because of the economy and high taxes and regulation. Phil Murphy is the two-term governor of New Jersey. He was the guy who succeeded Chris Christie, and he has driven New Jersey into the ground. Energy prices, thanks to all those windmills and solar panels and renewable mandates, have gone up 50%. Taxes are through the roof. New Jersey property taxes are some of the highest in the country. The state is in trouble. Last
By the way, our study that we've done at Unleash Prosperity shows hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people moving out of New Jersey to Texas, to Florida.
It's a mini New York story. It's like New York in miniature.
And by the way, those people are taking a lot of money with them, which is why they have to keep raising the taxes, because there are fewer people to pluck the feathers from.
But 4 years ago, Murphy was running for re-election. Everybody said he was 10 points ahead, 15 points ahead. When the votes, it was 2 points in the end. Yeah. 2 points.
And he outspent his Republican,
by
20 to 1.
Exactly. Jack Ciattarelli is the Republican candidate then, and he is now again. He has just pulled even in the Emerson poll.
What kind of governor has he been?
Well, Ciattarelli is the Republican candidate against the
who's the Democrat?
The Democrat is Mickey Sherrill, who is a congresswoman. No, she's the Murphy is two-term limit.
Okay,
he's two-term limit.
Thank you.
Mickey Sherrill is the Democratic congresswoman. She's running against Jack Ciattarelli, who was the Republican candidate last time. It's not been considered a competitive race, but Ciattarelli is pounding home that New Jersey has to change, or else people are going to be forced to move out of the country.
One of the things he talked about was maybe moving towards eliminating the income tax, which would be an amazing thing if they could accomplish that.
And New Jersey didn't have an income tax until about 1980.
And ever since they announced the income tax, the state has been a basket case.
Now, there's also been one other recent development.
Yes.
Mickey Sherrill's big call to fame is, I'm a moderate Democrat. I served as a helicopter pilot in the military for 10 years. I'm a new kind of Democrat. Well, it turns out that her records from the military academy have been released. She was not allowed to walk across the quad or graduate with the rest of her class because of a cheating scandal.
Wow.
Now, she won't release...
She lies?
Well, it's murky. She says, I refused to rat on other students who were cheating on tests. So because I was against the honor code, I was punished. But she won't release the records. So maybe she was involved in the cheating scandal directly.
So what do you make of this race? Is it competitive?
The Emerson poll, which is an independent poll, neither Republican nor Democrat, says it's tied.
Wow.
And that is 5 weeks to go.
Now, what if you were helping the Republican, which you're not, you don't get involved in races, but what advice would you give to him down the stretch?
What has the last 8 years gotten you except woe and trouble?
Last 12 years, I mean.
Well, that was before Christie. Christie was governor 8 years ago. That's Murphy took over from him.
I thought he served 2 terms.
12 years ago, Christie won re-election for a second term. Got it. So the bottom line is this. Republicans have not covered themselves in glory in New Jersey, but at least they haven't made things worse. And Ciattarelli is a former businessman. He is someone who served in county government. He's kept taxes down at the county level. I think he realizes that if New Jersey doesn't change, he's going to be sitting on a failed state.
But do you think that New Jersey residents realize what desperate, dangerous times they are?
That's how Ciattarelli came within 2 points of winning last time, being outspent. I think this is a very competitive.
Change. Okay, we got literally 45 seconds left. Quickly on the New York race, I've taken some heat this week for saying on Fox News the other day that if I had to choose between Mamdani and Cuomo, I'd pick Mamdani because I think Cuomo was such a horrific governor in the way he handled COVID and all the seniors who died in the nursing homes and so on. But that isn't much of a choice between.
No, but I live in New York City, Steve, so I can't. I don't have the luxury of your dispassionate view.
Yeah, how bad is Mamdani?
I think he's very bad,
he's
but
dangerous.
the powers of the mayor of New York are not nearly as great as people fear they are. The problem, and I'll finish with this.
Yes.
The perception that he can do a lot more damage than he actually can will drive jobs and businesses and people out of the city.
And one last thing is that if he wins, that will move the Democratic Party to the left, will it not?
The Democratic Socialists of America elected him in the Democratic primary. The danger is the Democratic Party in the future going to be controlled by Democrats or Democratic socialists?
Well, if he wins, I think the Democrat socialists will say, see, we have a winning formula here.
Yeah, unfortunately, it only works in urban areas
exactly,
of more than 1 million.
In red state America. Okay, folks. John Fund, thanks so much for joining. We will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. My next guest is another political expert and an expert on feeling the pulse of the American people, and that is John McLaughlin, one of the top pollsters in America, has polled for Donald Trump. Trump loves you, John McLaughlin, says you're one of the top pollsters in the country, so it must be true. Thanks for joining.
I'm glad he won, because otherwise that review
well, you
wouldn't have been
predicted
as
it,
good.
didn't you, John?
Yes. In 2016, 2020, I said it was close, but 2024, he was going to win. I just told him 8 days out, just make your putts, you'll win.
So I'm sitting here with my friend John Fund, so he may chime in and contradict you at times, but I'm just kidding. You two think a lot alike. So, John, let's start with the big picture, the mood of the country. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really interesting because if you look at the statistics on the economy, they're pretty good. They're very good. We've got really high economic growth. We've got a record stock market, John McLaughlin. We've got, record energy production. Gas prices are below $3 a gallon. Why are Americans in a grumpy mood?
Well, they're in a grumpy mood because the country's still polarized, and it's by the media. Literally, you've got basically we ask a question on national polls that we post every month. And we got a new one coming for September that we're posting either later today or tomorrow. But left of center news listeners are 33%. That's CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg, PBS. Right of center people, you got Fox News, Newsmax, conservative talk radio, and they're 35%. So they're evenly split, a third. Then the other third, they don't watch the news. They want to be entertained. Yeah. And what happens then is for example, in this national poll that we'll release, we ask people if they think that Trump's one big beautiful bill is more of a spending bill or a tax cut. 35% say it's a spending bill. They watch CNN, MSNBC. That's the way it's being portrayed. 43% say it's a tax cut. Well, they're in the right of center echo chamber that they're hearing the truth from Newsmax, Fox News, talk radio like ABC. And then we ask, well, how familiar are you with the Trump tax cuts? 60% will say they're familiar, but only 18% very familiar. Right. And then we'll ask, do you approve?
Now, John, all I've been doing for the last 6 months is trying to educate people about the greatness of this tax code. I mean, it's so frustrating what you're saying because, if you've done the polling. I remember you did it 3 or 4 or 5 months ago where you showed almost every aspect of the Trump tax cut when you told people what was in it. The fact that you'd get, lower tax rates and you'd save $2,000 and that it would help our corporations with lower tax rates so they can be competitive. And all of these things were popular. And then when you ask people, what do you think about the bill? Oh, we don't like it. So what's going on there?
What's going on is they're going to have to, reality is going to come crashing in for the Democrats because the Democrats and their left of center media allies aren't telling the truth. Surprise, surprise, right? But
they always do that, John, and a lot of times they get away with it.
Right. They're getting away with it so far. But right. What's happened is the good news is, like you said, the economy, we found out this week that it grew at a rate of 3.8%, the highest in 2 years.
That's a lot.
and people that are close to it, like we do a poll every other month for the Job Creators Network of 400 small business employers, people who have employees.
How do they feel?
88% are going to, and this is, by the way, it's a fully bipartisan sample. It's it's only 40% Republican. So, but they have 88% are going to take advantage of some provision of the tax cut because they're aware of it. And 91% will take a pro-growth measure in their business, like 42% will increase wages for employees. Another quarter of them will grow their business, will expand their business. 19% will hire more employees. So the small business owners who are aware of this are starting to grow the economy, and you're seeing that because they're the ones who create the jobs, not these big corporations. It's the small businesses where jobs are created. So they're starting to percolate. So then when we saw, like last month in our national poll, we saw the right direction moving over 40% for the first time since COVID. We saw 58% saying.
So hold on, John, just for a second. So the people who feel like the country is going in the right direction is the highest since COVID. Wow, yeah. That's amazing.
And since we came out of COVID, and then 58% said we were not in recession, which is the highest since before COVID. And then you have another 4 in 10 were telling us that the economy is starting to improve. So that's the highest again since we came out of COVID. So it's like things are starting to get there, but we have to tell people every day, but they're starting to see it. This is happening organically. Yeah. They're seeing it in their own lives. Yeah. And going back to our friend Larry Kudlow, he used to tell me, because I used to work for Arthur Finkelstein, who worked for Michael Deaver at the Reagan White House. They used to announce something positively economic-wise every day. They would focus on it.
Well, Trump does that.
Well, but we don't have a campaign right now. We have the government.
Yeah, right.
The campaign last year, like I saw the president on 9/11, and he said, because he had some good job approval numbers, he said, "Is this the highest we've had?" I said, "No, the highest was on Election Day," because you had a campaign that was building to a crescendo that was focused on it. And but it's still high. It's close, but it's not as high as it was.
So, John, let me ask you this: if you look at you've shown me some of your polling. People like low gas prices, and we have low gas prices. They like the deregulation. They like the things that Trump is doing. They like the fact that he has controlled the border. They like that a lot, right? So he's doing the things he said he would do. Those moves that he has made, cutting taxes, controlling the border, bringing down energy prices, those are popular, and yet what's his popularity at? I mean, why isn't he at a 70% approval rating?
Because at least a third of the voters who pay attention to left of center cable news channels and left of center media,
no matter what he does, they won't like him.
No, they're hearing that he said something about Tylenol or that he took Jimmy Kimmel off the air. They're not telling them. It's so biased. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel goes back on the air and he just lambastes the president the whole time. It's so, it's just a matter of time till his ratings fall again because it's horrible. So, but in the meantime, you've got the base is very happy with the president, and the average person is saying, guess what? Prices aren't as high as they used to be. The price of gas is down. We're at peace. We're getting stronger. So they're gradually feeling better, and reality is starting to tell them that things are good. Because the survey I just mentioned to you, Republicans beat the Democrats in the generic ballot for Congress 47-41.
Okay. All right, John, speed round. Can the Republican win the governor's race in New Jersey?
Yes, it's dead even. Dead even right now. Yeah, so some of the Republicans are saying they're slightly ahead, so it's dead even. And by the way, Trump, we only lost it by 6 points. Just before we debated with Biden, we were dead even with Biden. I wanted to play to win that state. Okay. But after Harris dropped down and raised $1 billion, we had to retrench into the 7 battleground.
Second question, is Jimmy Kimmel popular or not popular with the American people?
He's not popular overall, but I really haven't polled him. I mean, he's got his loyal left of center base. He's definitely not popular with the right of center base. So,
what advice would you give Donald Trump? You're one of the smartest political people I know. I've always said, and I love Donald Trump, but he's been so good to me, and I love what he's done for our country. But I've always said, John, that the only person who can ever beat Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And so,
by the way, you're right.
What advice would you give Donald? And by the way, I don't think he's listening to the show, so you could be honest. What advice would you give Donald Trump in terms of, so far he's off to a great start. What if he asks you, John, what should I be doing differently, or what am I not doing that I should be doing, or what am I doing that I shouldn't be doing?
Well, right now what he's doing is he's doing the substance. the reality of what he's doing as far as passing the greatest tax cut in the history of America that will grow the economy, trying to end wars. It's amazing, securing the border. He should keep his focus on policy success, but then he should go into a campaign-like mode to communicate those successes so that we break out of our conservative echo chambers so that the average person in the middle realizes that these successes are meant to make their lives better. So we
last question, John. Of all the people in the Trump administration, other than Donald Trump, who would you say is the most popular figure in the Republican Party or in the Trump administration outside of Donald Trump himself?
Well, right now it's J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance, okay. Why is that? You're saying in the Republican Party. I mean, he's leading in the national primary. We have what's interesting is we haven't posted, but JD is ahead with 43% of the vote. Number 2 is like significantly behind is Donald Trump Jr. But the other one that's most interesting is Gavin Newsom on the Democrat side is now in first place. He's ahead of Kamala Harris, 22-21. So because as the Democrats, as Trump succeeds, John, if Kamala Harris is the Democratic, if Gavin Newsom is the Democratic nominee, is his campaign going to be, I'm going to make America look like California?
Probably. Well, that's what we'll say.
Because that scares the crap out of me.
There's a reason why a lot of people are leaving California, and it's him.
Hey, there you go. Hey, John, we're out of time. That's John McLaughlin, one of the top political minds in the. How do people reach you, John?
Well, they can follow us on our website, McLaughlinOnline.com, and you can follow me on Twitter or Truth at AJMCLGHLN.
Well, thanks for everything you do, John. And thanks for carving out some time on a Saturday afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back, folks. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. By the way, I had this week an amazing experience. I spent 4 days in Montana. How many of you have been to Montana? Raise your hand. A lot of you probably have not been to Montana. I've been there twice before. I think I've been to every state. I'm pretty sure I've been to every state. But Montana's way out there, obviously, in the West Coast, up in the mountains. And if you ever saw the show Yellowstone, or if you ever saw the miniseries, one of my favorite of all time, which was Lonesome Dove, this is what it reminds you of. These open plains, beautiful mountains, blue skies, green and yellow valleys. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so I had a wonderful time. I was there for a conference with a bunch of economists and conservatives, and we talked a lot about what's going on in the world, but we also had time for some hunting, shooting guns, and we had some time for, and by the way, I wasn't very good at that. I'm not a very good shot. I'm what you might call a city slicker, but we also had some horse riding, which I loved. I had a great time riding on the horses. By the way, you go up these caverns, you go up these mountains, and literally you'd be on you'd be 300 feet above, up in the air on the mountain, and you'd be on a path that was maybe 5 feet wide, and you'd be on this horse, and you'd be looking down, and you're looking down in a cavern like 400 feet down. It just scared the bejesus out of me. And those horses are really sure-footed, and they were able to. I'm still here. That's the good news. But it was an exhilarating experience. If you ever get a chance to go out west, if you go, to a state like Montana and go on a dude ranch, it is. You all saw the movie City Slickers. It was very much like that. And what I was very proud of is the last day we got up really early in the morning, and about 8 of us got on our horses, and many of us had not. I've ridden before, but not a whole lot. And we went out and we brought in the cows, so to speak. So we went out into the valley, and there were about 150 cows out there, and we rounded them up and we brought them in, and it was a really fun experience. So I'm in a good mood because of that, and I hope I get to do that again. And if you get a chance, do it. Especially if you have kids. There are a bunch of teenagers there who never been on a house, probably never been out on a horse, and probably had never really been out west, and it's a different life out there. I was a cowboy for a week, folks. So giddy up, as the saying goes. So I want to talk for a few minutes about something that Ken Griffin said the other day, which I thought was really wise, and it was good advice for Donald Trump. And Ken Griffin, you may know, he is one of the world's richest men. He's an incredibly successful financial investor, and he was originally in Chicago, and then he moved to Florida because the taxes were so high in Chicago. But he's a free market guy. So I've always liked him, and I believed in his philosophy, and he's a really incredible, one of the world's greatest, and he's sort of the modern day Warren Buffett, if you will. And Ken Griffin was giving a warning to Trump, and he said, look, don't get in the swamp with the crocodiles. And, he was saying that he didn't like the fact that all these businesses are lining up to meet with Trump to get special favors. And it's something that makes me nervous, too. And I love Trump. You guys know this. You men and women who listen to this show, I'm a Trump guy, and I've spent a lot of time in the Oval Office with him, and I think he has been a splendid president. But I don't like the fact that these businessmen and women go into the White House, they pay, $1 million, they go in, and then they get some kind of special favor from Trump. They get an exemption for the tariffs, or they get some special deal. That's not the way our government should run, Mr. President, with all due respect. You've done an amazing job deregulating, cutting taxes, reducing our energy costs, defending America, defending our border, all of these things you've been spectacular on. But I don't like the fact that if the CEO, Tim Cook of Apple, goes in to seize you, the next day his stock goes up by $1 billion because you offered him some kind of deal. So let's get away from the crony capitalism and treat everybody equally. I'm a little worried about the tariffs, folks. For those of you regular listeners to the More Money show, I'm not a big fan of the tariffs. I know that because we got a lot of mail and an email and text from you all saying, don't be so tough on Trump on the tariffs. And I get that. And I've said I don't like Trump's tariffs, but I like the trade deals he's able to arrange. Those have been very beneficial to America. But now he wants these new tariffs on prescription drugs. I don't understand that. I thought we wanted to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Americans, including myself, are very angry about how much prescription drugs cost. So why would you put a tariff on that? So I'm going to propose to you folks, and I'm going to ask Trump about this the next time I see him. I hope to see him in the next few weeks. That instead of having these tariffs that they're on, they're off, some are 25%, some are 50%, some are 100%. Some things are tariff-free, some things cost a lot, some things that are less than $100 pay no tariff. It's just a mishmash of tariffs that sort of you make it up as you go along. Instead of that, if we're going to have a tariff, why don't we just say a 15% across-the-board tariff? In other words, anything that is imported into the United States pays a tax at the border. It's a custom that they pay at the border. So you bring in something that's $100, its value, you pay a $15 tax on that. Now, I don't like taxes, you know that. But what I'm saying is if it was just universally 15% for everything, then you could actually lower income taxes, which would be good for the economy, right? And you wouldn't be paying favorites. And everybody would know what they pay. And it would be, in my opinion, the right way to go. By the way, you'd be mostly taxing consumption. So that's what we want. We don't want to tax people on what they put into the economy, their work and their effort and their investment. You want to tax people on what they take out of their economy, which is their consumption. I like that idea a lot. And I'm going to stick with it, folks. I think a 15% tariff and then lower the income taxes. You raise revenue from the government. It's fair to everybody. There's no special interest privileges. That is, to me, the way to go. One other quick point I want to make to you. You saw the numbers. You may have seen the numbers that come out the last couple of days that the economy is growing at 3.5% to 4%. Those are good numbers. What was Jerome Powell talking about when he said the economy is growing at 1.5%? It's not. Mr. Chairman, it's growing at 3.5% to 4%. It grew its 3.5% in the second quarter. In the third quarter, the latest numbers are it's growing at close to 4%. Those are dynamite numbers. Why is Jerome Powell crapping all over the economy? Why is he saying, Trump is, causing all these problems? All he talks about are terrorists. He doesn't talk about the big, beautiful tax bill. He doesn't talk about the deregulation. He doesn't talk about the fact that they're draining the swamps. He doesn't talk about the fact that we're securing our border. All of these things are good for the economy. They're good for America. And Jerome Powell has to go. I'm going to say that loud and clear. Jerome Powell has to go. Now, I know he can still stay around for 4 or 5 months. I think he should do the adult thing, what's best for the country. He should resign, and let's put somebody in there who knows numbers. Because when you've got a Fed chairman who underestimates growth by 150%, I'm sorry, there's something wrong there. He can't count. He can't gauge the economy. And when you have to say that the Fed chairman is probably one of the 4 or 5 most powerful people in Washington. And if you've got somebody incompetent over there, we've got to get him out. Now, I don't think Trump is going to fire him, but I do think we can do a lot better than Jerome Powell, folks. And I think you'd probably agree with me. This is the More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hopefully you're having a wonderful weekend. I hope you're getting outside. If it's not raining where you are, I know it's raining in some areas of the East Coast, but get out if you can, because fresh air and exercise are some of the most healthy things you can do for your body. In the meantime, I have on one of my people I really admire. I have him on the show all the time because he is really one of the smartest people I know on economics. I mean, when I think about the smart people on economics, I think of Steve Forbes, who's a regular on the show, Larry Kudlow, who's on for 2 hours, 3 hours before my show comes on, and I think of Art Laffer, and then I think of people like David Malpass. You know David Malpass, he's on Fox News and Fox Business all the time. He was in the Trump Treasury Department in his first term, and had a huge impact on the Trump tax cut. And then he also served as the president of the World Bank. He was appointed there by Donald Trump, taking on the climate change fanatics. So David Malpass, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be on.
Okay, so let me start. I spoke earlier on the show about I was so proud of the president when he gave his speech to the United Nations, and he said that there's way too much attention to climate change, that you people really should get back to business of providing the services and the power that your citizens need to get ahead, and that this was bankrupting a lot of countries. And I happen to agree with them. What do you think?
I agree with the president, and the United Nations, is sprawling. It's huge, and it hasn't been effective in its core missions. So it then diversifies into climate spending.
Right.
And to be clear on that point, the global community is mostly interested in the spending. When you dig down, it's unclear what they believe in or if they think any of the things that they're doing is going to work. It just matters that the money keeps flowing.
Yeah, so let me just interrupt you on that point, if I may, because it's a really critical point, David. I've said this many times, and you're confirming what I've said, which is that the green movement is really not, the green is not about the environment. The green is about the dollars, the money. And we have built, not just in the United States, David, but around the world, a climate change industrial complex, in my opinion. And if there's anyone who has confronted that global change industrial complex, it's you who was running the World Bank.
That's right. And the cost of that is people in lots of countries don't have electricity.
I know, it's outrageous.
They're spending these billions and billions of dollars and not getting any reductions in emissions or any increase in electricity. So it's a giant problem, and the institutions work together to keep that going. I think there has to be better, much more focused mission. And Trump was right that the United Nations is supposed to help cause peace and keep peace. And they're not able to do that. They're supposed to stop starvation. Look at Sudan. There's this giant famine, and the UN really doesn't have an impact on that. So moving on.
So, David, I just want to make one more point about this because it's really important if you care about ending world poverty, and we're a long way from doing that. But as I look at the statistics, and I know you're familiar with these, the more energy you use per capita, the richer a country is. So using energy is what makes a country rich.
That's right. It's just common sense that if you've got more energy, you can run a machine and that can process some of your agricultural products. And that allows you to actually have value added within the countries. And that's missing right now in much of the world.
So let's turn to I'm talking to David Malpass, the former president of the World Bank, who tried to reform it, did the best he could. And I don't know if that was a task that was possible, but you did an amazing job when you were there, David. Unfortunately, they're right back to their old tricks, unfortunately. But let's talk about money, because you are one of the world's experts on monetary policy. So a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago or so, we got a rate cut from the Federal Reserve Bank. Trump wants a lot more. They finally did a quarter percentage point. Where do you stand on this? Is this going to help the economy? Was it the right thing to do? Was he too late? What's your take?
It doesn't help much because they should have cut in June, July, and September. Now they're starting that process in September, and they may do ones in their future meetings this year. But that means month after month, they're higher than they should have been on the rate. There's a direct cost because the national debt rolls over at the rate that the Fed sets, and so that's costing, I think, $35 billion by being too late with the start of the cuts. But then it also has the indirect effect that businesses and mortgages have been too high for that period of time. So it doesn't fix it to start the cuts now. It just embeds the idea of being too late.
So the last time the Fed cut rates back when Biden was president, we got the rate cut, but mortgage rates went up a little bit. So how is it that these lower short-term rates will lower the long-term rates?
That's the best question, and people have to think about it. But if the rate cut allows more lending to small businesses, and if there's a regulatory environment that allows it, then you'll get more production. And so we have to break out of this idea that the rates themselves lower the inflation rate. We saw in the Biden administration that just didn't work. And the reason for that is because Biden was putting in all the regulatory reforms. He was hiring workers like crazy in Washington to write regulations, and the tax hike threat stopped businesses from investing. So those have been removed. So now, if you've got a lower rate, it's sustainable. It's supportive of a better credit environment for the U.S. But it makes the country more creditworthy to roll the debt at a lower interest rate.
So if you were Fed chairman, and you're one of the people I would certainly support for replacing Jerome Powell, by the way, you couldn't possibly do a worse job than Powell has done, but I think you do an excellent job. And there's a lot of really great people, yourself, Judy Shelton. I'd love to see any of you that get what Trump is doing in that position, but you'd certainly be one of the most qualified people to do it. How do you assess the economy right now, David? I mean, it's interesting. I was talking earlier on the show that if you ask people about their mood, they're a little bit grumpy, they're a little bit nervous. But if you look at a lot of the statistics, they're pretty good. We got 3.5% growth, David. We've got a record stock market. We've got low energy prices. So how do you assess that? I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense. But if you ask people, are things getting better? They're saying no.
I think affordability really is an issue, and that gets into the mortgage rates. So there's some things for people to complain about. I think there is a change in the wind in terms of energy policy, but you have to really see that in your utility bill. So there is some lag time going on. But from the standpoint of the Fed, coming back to that, the growth rate shouldn't be a negative. The economy is continuing to grow. And so that's going to frustrate the Fed. Like the personal spending data is still pretty strong. People have some money and they're optimistic about the future, so they spend some money. And the Fed's going to look at that and say, oh, we should keep the rates high. we've got to break out of that model. And
Right.
Steve, while we're on it, there's two other important things. It's not just the interest rate. The Fed has this giant balance sheet. I was very happy to see Secretary Bessent.
Hold on, Dave, hold on, because we've got we got an
Okay.
audience of non-economists. So what does that even mean, that the Fed has a giant balance sheet? What does that mean?
Since 2008, never before, but since 2008, the Fed borrows money from banks and dumps it into government bonds. It's
Wait, hold on. I just want to get my mind around this. So you're saying that the Fed is buying bonds?
Yeah, for sure. They buy U.S. government bonds from Wall Street, from the secondary market.
Why?
And why did they do that? They claimed, starting in 2010, that it was going to be good for the economy for them to buy government debt. That enabled the government to spend more money, and lowered. And Secretary Bessent did a great job calling that out in the Wall Street Journal article about 3 weeks ago. People should really read it and see that for 15 years, you've had the central bank claiming that they're benefiting people when it actually hurts small businesses. And see, before we lose it, the regulatory policy from the Federal Reserve has gone in the same direction, hurting small business. They think small businesses are risky, so then on regulation they discourage the banks from going in that direction. That can all be fixed, but it has to be a change of mindset at the Fed.
David, we just have 1 minute left. I'm talking to the great David Malpass, who's one of the smartest economists I know. He ran the World Bank. He was number 2 or 3 at the Treasury Department under Donald Trump, when has been one of his key economic advisors over the years. If you were advising Donald Trump right now, and he asked you what should the Fed be doing, and what would you do if you were running the Fed, what would the answer to that question be?
Look at the purchasing power of the dollar. If we want affordability, we want median income to go up for people, workers' wages to go up more than inflation, then you have to have the purchasing power of the dollar be strong. And that means the Fed has to say it, Treasury Department can say it. And then once the U.S. government is behind that, and certainly if President Trump said it, you would almost have markets running into the U.S. dollar. You'd have foreign investors, domestic investors saying, I want to be there. They're doing that halfway now, but you could double the excitement on the U.S. economy by saying you're going to have the dollar be the dominant currency. It's going to be the cryptocurrency, stable coins worldwide, and it doubles the growth rate of other countries too, because they can get access to real money.
So you're basically repeating what sort of our buddy Arthur Laffer says, which is a stable dollar is really critical to economic growth.
That's right. And if you can think of a Trump dollar, 50 years from now, people would look back, say this was the Trump dollar, and it caused the U.S. to dominate in a positive way.
I love that. And I think that's exactly right. You've used the term defend the dollar. What does that mean?
That means you have to care about it. Right now, in the economic models, they're indifferent to the dollar, and so that's you see gold going up even today. It's needless. We want people to be in the U.S. dollar, and you could do that by saying it.
Just in the last 30 seconds then, because you just raised an important point. We had something in the hotline the other day about this, that the gold price is getting near $3,800. It was, it's gone up almost 45%, David, this year. That's not a good sign.
That's right. It's mostly a sign on do people care about the U.S. dollar? And they're saying, well, I'm not sure that. They seem to be a little indifferent. So I don't think yet that it's a serious inflation indicator, but you have to look at it and say, we better talk with more confidence and respect for the U.S. dollar.
I love that, David. Defend the dollar. I use that. I've borrowed that term from you now all the time because I think it's well said. That's David Malpass, by the way, folks. He is one of the leading economists in the country. Very nice of you, David, on this Saturday afternoon to carve out some time. Thank you so much. And folks, this is the More Money Show. We'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I was just reading a study the other day that shows that Americans are paying more for college education than ever before, which I think is a financial outrage. For those of you who are regular listening of the More Money Show, by the way, I'm Stephen Moore, an economist that I've worked at the Heritage Foundation, I've worked at the Wall Street Journal, I've worked for Donald Trump. I've been in this game a long time, and I continue to say that the biggest financial swindle in America is how much our colleges and universities are charging our families. It is outrageous. We cannot tolerate this. It is a big redistribution of income from middle-class people to rich people who run these universities, and I don't understand it. So I'm going to say two things about the universities that I think are very interesting. And if you get our Unleash Prosperity hotline, you're probably familiar with these because we've talked about it this week in the hotline. If you don't get it, please go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up for the what's called the hotline. Free. It's free. It costs you nothing. You just have to give us your email, and we will send it to you for free 5 mornings a week, and then you will be the smartest person in the room when you're talking about politics and the economy. I think you'll like it. And by the way, if you don't like it, you can always just unsubscribe because it's free and it costs nothing. And we don't sell the list. You're not going to be bothered by other people. We just want you, our loyal listeners, to know what's going on in the country. In any case, we had this statistic that came out that showed that in the last 15 years, the cost of tuition in the last 15 years has gone up 71%. 71%. I guarantee you the consumer price index has not gone up by that amount. Now, here's the thing. Over that same time period, the percentage of people who think that college is very important has gone from 75% to 35%. Americans are losing their trust in the universities. So what I'm saying is their costs have gone up by 71%, but their public support has gone down 55%. So that tells you Americans do not believe they're getting their money's worth, and I'm going to give you a reason why. Now, there was another study that came out. This was a poll of Americans this was a poll of university faculty, the people who are teaching our kids in the universities, and this looked at how these university professors at the elite universities, the Harvards, the Yales, the Princetons, the Dukes, the Northwesterns, the Stanfords, are they Republicans or Democrats? And by the way, I don't care one way or the other. I just want a diversity of opinion, right? There should have Republicans and Democrats and independents and some socialists and people with different opinions. That's why we have universities, to be exposed to all sorts of different opinions. And here are the numbers. For UCLA, 89% of the professors are Democrats, 89%. At Dartmouth, 91% are Democrats. At Duke, 95% are Democrats. At Brown, 96% are Democrats. At Princeton, 98% are Democrats. You'd think they would have, just by mistake, hired a Republican, but they don't. And here's one. Are you ready for this, folks? Harvard University, the jewel of the Ivy Leagues, 99% of the professors are Democrats. I guess that means there's one Republican running around on campus. They'll probably try to fire him. That is an outrage. And here's the outrage of this, folks, the special outrage. That we have universities because they are supposed to be liberal institutions. I mean, liberal, not in the sense of being liberal politically, but a liberal education means you're exposed to all sorts of ideas. And you make up your own mind about whether you agree or not with these ideas. But you're exposed to all sorts of ideas. I don't have a problem if somebody wants to take a course in socialism, but I also want to make sure that they're exposed to capitalism. That's not happening in our universities because they're all left-wingers. They're far left-wingers. By the way, the fact that 99% of them are registered Democrats at Harvard maybe the other 1% are socialist or communist or something. They might not even be Republicans. And so this is a real failing of our upper education system. I met so many people, by the way, who did not go to college, who have been very successful. Look, I went to University of Illinois. I got a liberal arts education. I'm the better for it. I've been successful in my career. And so I'm not, it is college and universities can provide you a great education and a great training ground, but they're not doing that like they used to. I think that's the point. This is a big change in the culture of our universities, and a lot of conservatives feel like they can't speak up or else they will be ostracized or they will get a bad grade. I can't tell you how many students come up to me and say, oh, I just regurgitate all the left-wing stuff. One other quick point, if I may, before we have to take a break. It's very interesting that if you look at Charlie Kirk, one of the first articles he wrote when he was like 18 or 19 years old, he was criticizing Paul Krugman, saying, why does everybody have to take the Economics 100 textbook from Paul Krugman? Krugman is one of the most liberal economists out there. He's for big government. He's against the Reagan. He said Reaganomics was a failure when it was one of the most prosperous times. And I love this. He said, and this is an 18-year-old kid. This was the genius of Charlie Kirk. He said, why don't they teach Arthur Laffer economics, not Paul Krugman economics? And I say amen to that, because Art Laffer has been right and Paul Krugman has been wrong. Folks, we'll be right back. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you so much for joining. This is the highlight of my week, to be in front of this microphone and be able to talk to you about what's going on with our country. I hope you learn from this. And I'm going to give you a little economics lesson, if I can, in the last 5 minutes of the show. As most of you know, I run a group called Unleash Prosperity, and we come into contact with politicians and, statesmen and all the muckety mucks all the time. And I can't tell you how continually shocked I am at how many times otherwise smart people are worried about robotics. The robotics revolution is coming. In other words, driverless cars are coming. That means Uber and Lyft drivers won't exist 5 years from now. It'll all be done by automation and by robots. The fact is, I think I've told you all that I'm on the board of a company called Lightspeed. We build houses with robots, and that technology is going to get better and better. In 5 and 10 years, most of the construction of housing will be done by robots. Trucks will be driven by robots. So that means in 10 years, there won't be a lot of trucking drops. So it's changing our society in a big way, just like the farm tractor changed the American economy back 100 years ago, when it used to be 30 Americans out of 100 worked on agriculture, and now 2.5 Americans out of 100 work on agriculture, but we produce 3 times more food at 1/3 the cost. And so this is a good thing. Okay, this is a good thing that we see technology. Technology is what makes us richer. It makes us more productive. It allows us to make more money. So to understand this fallacy that technology hurts jobs, I want to tell you a quick story from Milton Friedman. And I was privileged enough when I was, 20 years ago, I got to know Milton Friedman right before he died. I think he lived to around 92. And I'm going to just quote you. This was from a dinner that we had with Milton Friedman in San Francisco. Probably it was about 2 or 3 years before he died. He was about 92, and his wife, Rose Friedman, who was the co-author of Free to Choose, his magnum opus, one of the great economic books of all time. If you've never read Free to Choose, if your kids haven't, please get it for them. So I'm just going to read to you what he told us at this dinner, and it's a wonderful economic lesson. Okay? Are you ready? Okay. While traveling in this is what Milton Friedman told us. While traveling in India in the early 1960s, I visited a construction site where thousands of workers were building a canal. However, I saw no modern machinery. I asked the lead engineer why they weren't using tractors and land movers to dig out the rocks and the dirt. The engineer told me, quote, "Dr. Friedman, you don't understand. This is a jobs program to put to work as many men as possible," unquote. To that, Milton Friedman says, he replied, quote, Oh, I was confused. I thought you wanted to build a canal. If your objective is to create jobs, then I have a better idea. Take away these men's shovels and give them spoons. And that is, a real economic lesson. We always want to be as productive as possible. When you're productive, you create wealth and you create more goods and services, and we are all better off. And that's what the AI revolution and the robotics revolution are going to do. It's going to be scary. It's going to bring brisk change. It's going to come faster than you think. Be ready for it. And if you've got kids, make sure, I say this all the time on the show. As we move into the future, the most important muscle in your body won't be how much you can lift or how much power you have in your legs or how fast you can run. The most important muscle in your body will be your brain, the one right between your ears. So make sure that your kids are ready for this technology revolution by making sure they're smart, they're intelligent, they know how to do math. I mean, it's a tragedy that half of the kids don't know how to do math these days. That's a failure of our schools. So make sure your kids and grandkids do get that education so they're ready for this technological revolution, which will make us better off. Folks, it has been a privilege to be on with you these last 2 hours. Thank you so much for those of you sticking with me. Next week, we will be live and in color. I will be taking your calls. So join us next Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m. on WABC, and have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
This Sunday is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Walk Run, and our team is in need of your support. Right now, every dollar counts. The WABC hosts must all rally their loyal audience to participate. Go to WABCRadio.com/walk and help your favorite hosts right here at WABC and support the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Go to WABCRadio.com/walk. Help WABC raise money for the amazing Tunnel to Towers Foundation Walk Run. Go to WABCRadio.com/walk.